To begin working with an NRC, first we need to download and install Java. Open a web browser and go to java.com. Click on the free download link. Then click on Agree and start free download. The file that downloads is current to your current operating system. Whatever version they provide, use that version. It will work with our software. Once that's downloaded and installed, go to the SP Controls website at spcontrols.com. Mouse over Products and select Pixie Pro Family. Select the Networked Room Controller. Scroll down the page partway and select the Software Application. It's 109.9 megabytes, the Networked Room Controller Configuration Utility. Just click on it to begin the download. Once the download is complete, go ahead and double-click the file. Once the configuration utility opens, go ahead and click on Check Updates. That will begin the download process of all of our most recent drivers. Once the display driver update is complete, go ahead and click OK to dismiss the window. Before connecting to the NRC, we next need to change our IPv4 settings. On the Mac, click on the Wi-Fi icon followed by Open Network Preferences. Look at your Ethernet connection and change it to the following values. These values can also be found on page 6 of the NRC manual. This can also be downloaded from our website. In Windows, click on Start, and what we're looking for is the Network and Sharing Center. This can be found in the control panel or just by going through the search in Windows. Select Change Adapter Settings on the left. Right-click the local area connection and select Properties. Then, select the Internet Protocol version 4 TCP IPv4 and select Properties again. The values should be the same here. If they are not, select Use the following IP address and enter them thusly. Click OK and close when finished. Once you've connected your Cat5 cable to your NRC's Ethernet port, go ahead and enter in the IP address of the NRC. The default is 192.168.1.100 and hit enter. You'll be prompted with the user ID and password. The default for the NRC is admin with a capital A, and the password is admin also with a capital A. Click Login to commence the setup. Once logged in, select Devices Setup on the left, and then create New Setup for our first setup. Make sure that you give the room some identifying name. In this case, we're doing a training, so let's just call it NRC Training. Click Next when ready. Once set, go ahead and scroll through the drivers and pick the display driver that will connect to the NRC directly. If you do not see the driver available, don't hesitate to contact SP Controls, either by email or by phone for assistance. In this case, let's assume we're working with an Epson projector, and let's work with the Brightlink 685 Rev C. Set your screen and lift information thusly. In our case, we will be controlling a screen, so I will check it to go ahead and use our relays. Also set your query information if you wish. In our case, I'm going to pick none for no queries. Hit Next when ready. In step 3, you will attach any other devices that you have for your setup. If there is a control puck, you will announce it with a paperclip. If there is a Pixie Pro panel, you announce that with a paperclip as well by holding down one of the source buttons and inserting the paperclip on the panel. Once you are satisfied, go ahead and hit Next and go to the next step. In step 4, we will build the layout of the panel. Click on the plus icon to add in any buttons that we wish to use, and click on the sun icon to activate sections of the panel. In our case, we'll be controlling the screen, and we'll be controlling volume on the projector. We will control 4 source inputs, and we will need 2 buttons for mute and freeze commands. On the right, we will not be using our transport controls as there's not needed in our setup, so I'm going to deactivate them in this case. Check the box that says screen buttons always active to make sure that the screen buttons are always active in your setup. If you need the miscellaneous buttons to always be active, that would be these 4 buttons on the bottom of the panel. Check this box here. In our case, we only need them active for our setup when the unit is on, so we will leave that unchecked. For the cosmetic settings, the defaults in most cases will fit most users, but we do have options for a startup volume, which will adjust the volume option. We also have options for brightness on the panel, key click sounds for when you press buttons on the panel, and different options for the on and off buttons. The defaults in most cases will fit for most user scenarios, but you can toggle these as you see fit. We next want to add in the actual names of the buttons that will correspond to our panel setup. So in our case here, since I know that the 685 has 3 HDMI inputs, I'm going to add in one for HDMI 1. I'm going to add in one for a computer, one for a laptop, and these can also be selected in the center section as well if you wish, but typing them in the bottom also works just as well. And one more, we will just call this one Podium for a Podium laptop for a presenter. Next we will add in a command for mute and a command for freeze. Once those are set and you are satisfied, go ahead and hit next. In step 5, we will work with these selections. So a moment ago, you saw me name those individual selections in the center section in step 4. Now those same inputs correspond here in step 5. So for HDMI 1, we want to pick HDMI from the projector. For computer, we will use RGB 1. For laptop 3, or rather laptop for selection 3, we will use HDMI 2. And for the Podium laptop, we will use HDMI 3. We're not using any transport controls for controlling a Blu-ray player or an Apple TV in this scenario, so just leave those as none for now. In more complicated setups, such as when using an amplifier, use the volume control on the right section to go ahead and change which device you will use for controlling the volume. In our case, the Breitling will control the volume for this setup, and thusly it is selected. If you wish the panel to start up on the first selection each time, meaning HDMI 1 in this case, select that dimple at the top. You can also pick any one of the other inputs so it always starts on that input when the unit starts up. But if you want to use the last selection after the unit was powered off, you can do that as well. In this case, I wanted to start up on HDMI 1 every single time, so I will leave that selected. When you're ready, go ahead and hit next. If you mouse over the buttons in step 6, you will see what commands are being sent from each button. So when we power the system on, the power on of the projector will activate. If we press volume up, we will send the volume up for the Epson Breitling in this case. On the bottom are automation actions that happen on. So in the case of power on, when this button is pressed, this command sequence is also sent. These are the relays for our screen commands. It shows relay 1 and 2 opening, relay 2 closing to send the screen down, and relay 2 opening again, as most screens require only a momentary closure of the relay. Power off is the exact opposite. 1 and 2 opens, only relay 1 closes, and relay 1 opens again. Again, this will be setting our screen up on the power off command. You can also press screen up and screen down, as those commands are mimicked here as well. And that was all set from that checkbox in step 2 for your screen relays. Our inputs are also set: HDMI, RGB1, HDMI 2, and HDMI 3 for our projector when going to these individual inputs. However, the mute and freeze commands, there are no commands present. To add a command in manually, go ahead and click on the button, click on Add, select the 232 port for the Epson BrightLink, and click on the pull down to see a list of available commands. In this case, we're working with mute, and an AV mute makes the most sense to me, so I'm going to go ahead and select that one. In our case, this is a toggle button, so there's no need to set up a round robin or a list of commands for muting it on and muting it off. Save, and save again when ready. Again, the button will highlight blue once there's a command on it, in this case, AV mute. For freeze, we'll follow the same steps. We'll select Add, send action to the BrightLink 685, and for the command to send, we will send the freeze command. And again, this is a toggle command. There's no freeze on or freeze off in this scenario. So we'll just select freeze, save, and save again. Once we mouse over each button and see the commands are set as we want them to be set, we can go ahead and click Next to upload the configuration. Go ahead and enter a file name. In this case, we're doing an NRC test setup. And then select Save. This will save a local copy, and this is confirmed on the left-hand side under Status. Configuration saved successfully. Once we're set, go ahead and click on Upload to actually upload the configuration. Select OK to send the configuration and reset the NRC. Once the system finishes rebooting, it'll return us back to step 7. To go ahead and test and make sure that the configuration is on the system, go to Monitor and Control and verify that your panel setup looks exactly as you designed it in the first place. From here, you can actually control the NRC as well. Clicking on will activate the system. A moment ago, you may have seen the screen lift actually fire. That's the momentary closure for the relay to send the screen down in this scenario. Once the projector finishes warming up, this light will turn a solid blue, and the system will be ready to be used. You can then change the volume and the input select settings once the system finishes warming up. Until then, the panel will wait until it is finished warming up. Once it's warmed up, we can go ahead and control the system. The volume indicator lights will follow our up and down volume buttons, and the input switching commands will follow along on our panel setup as well. When we're set and we're finished using the room for the day, go ahead and click off, and that will power the system down. When you're finished with your setup, go ahead and select Log Out in the top right, and that will log you out of the setup.